Welcome, everybody, to the Civil Matters podcast. Today we have founder and CEO of Heave. Welcome, Alex, to the podcast.
Thanks, Joe. Good to be with you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. If you could just start off by telling us a little bit about Heave, what you guys do, and how you're involved with the civil industry.
Sure. Heave is Uber for heavy equipment mechanics. That's the simplest explanation. I started the company 5 years ago, and we switched to repairing heavy equipment 3 years ago. And we provide independent 1099 mechanics to civil contractors like Hutchinson in the Texas and Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee markets today, for all field service matters. No shop support, just everyday field service out on the job site for all brands of equipment.
Right on. So I want to get into how you got into the heavy equipment space, but first, I know that sports is a big deal for you. Spent a lot of time in sports and even in business. You draw a lot of parallels between sports and business. So could you kind of share a little bit about growing up in sports and what you learned and some of the things that stuck with you?
Yeah. Sports is really important to me. I talk about it a lot. I was a career athlete, played basketball all my life, played in college. I was overseas in Europe. I played against professional teams when I was in school. So it's always been a huge part of my identity, and a lot of my learnings and a lot of who I am today are from that background. Things like competitive, like learning how to compete, the value of practice. With sports. You're asking yourself, why am I running these sprints at 6 a.m. or why am I doing this? And it's, in an effort to improve, to get better. There are goals, the other thing that's really important that applies to business too is being able to work on a team, playing and practicing with other people. Learning sacrifice, leadership. Like I'm proud to say that I was a captain of every team that I was a part of, from grade school, high school, and college, and so it was very formative for me, and has helped me navigate the business world with that background and experience.
What do you think are one or two of the key principles that you take from sports that you have leaned on and applied to in business?
I would say what I was talking about, like working with others, I'm sure this would resonate with you, having started a business, even though your name is on the building. And my name's not on the building, but I started the company. We don't get anywhere without other people, working just as hard as me, and learning how to communicate effectively with other people, learning how to, lift others up. That was a huge thing, and just the overall, like the competitiveness and desire, like wanting to improve, like wanting to work towards something, wanting to win, and then understanding and having gone through it, all the things that are necessary to get to that. And that's always been helpful for me. Like with our startup, with our business, is like it's really, really difficult when you start a company just in general, but I don't think you can envision like, hey, we're going to get to this point you have to like break it up into smaller steps and say, all right, we got to get to here first. And then what are the actions needed? And then we got to get to here. And then you just build it along the way. And that's, was helpful, from sports, from my background, to learn how to apply that to company building.
So how did you transition from sports and playing in Europe and into heavy equipment?
Totally by chance. Also, it had an injury. So it was like the stereotypical, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, have like a backup plan. And I didn't. So I wanted to play basketball. I tore my knee my senior year of school. It kind of derailed things for me. And, had to start a career, had to get a real job, and didn't know much about the construction industry. Found the opportunity through networking and, friends of family. It was a sales opportunity for a heavy equipment dealership in Florida. And I grew up in the Philadelphia area. It was where I grew up. A lot of people had kind of stayed in the same place. And so I always had a desire to, go experience something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was an appeal to, move to Florida, and start a career. And once I got into the industry, I really, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the blue collar nature of the people. That's been something that, I'm thankful for, that I found the industry, and, it's been now in the industry for 21 years.
And then what led you from being in equipment sales to, I need to start Heave?
Like most things, like it's life throwing things at you. So I had a long career at a dealership, 17 years. And I was fortunate in that I worked in all the different departments. So I started in sales, and then I was in management, and then I was exposed to the rental side and the parts and service side. And so I had a really well-rounded education. And right before COVID, our dealership was sold. Owner of our business was looking to get out. It was, I think, 75-ish, 76 at the time. And so we sold the dealership, and that's when I was assessing my options of what to do next. I was for the last 3 years, I was the chief operating officer of the dealership. So it was my day-to-day responsibility to run the whole thing. And so I was just trying to, look at my options. Like, do I go work for another dealer? Do I leave the industry altogether? Or do I start a company? And so, I mean, it was not an easy decision. It took, about 6 months for me to decide what to do as I was assessing my options. But I had this, I don't know, at that time in my life, I had this really strong pull to start my own thing within the industry, for a variety of reasons that we can probably discuss. And I'm very, very thankful that I did, because, 5 years later, it's been the most fun journey of my life.
So what are some of those reasons that you jumped out there and went that route?
Yeah, I like overall, is having when I started in the industry in 2004, so that 17-year period at the dealer, it was surprising to me how little it had changed, like the industry. The sales department, the rental department, the interaction with the customer on the service side, there really was no change in anything. No real improvement. Year after year, I was, having the same conversations with customers over their unhappiness with certain things. One of the other things that I would tell you is, when I started in the industry, some of the veterans that I'd worked alongside would tell me, hey, our business is heavy machinery. Our business is just like the auto business, but we're always 10 to 15 years behind. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And just being a student of business, I would look across to the auto industry, and you could just see so many things change over time with technology impacting the auto business. Like, for example, the entire customer journey changed. People used to go to the dealership and they would hate to do so because you feel like you lose an entire Saturday.
Right.
Playing games, like negotiating, let me bring out my boss. I don't know if we can do that. All the paperwork on the service side, same thing. And, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe a little longer. It just changed. I have friends who have bought Teslas and they've showed me the experience. It's crazy. They apply for financing on their phone. They get approved within minutes. They just get an email or a text message link with directions to go pick up their car, and they can just open the door with their phone. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And similarly, like you can buy. I bought a car online. I live in Tampa. Last year, after the hurricanes here in Florida, I had to buy a new car. Did searching online, bought a car, and it was just shipped to me. Like, so easy. And then on the service side, I took my car in for service yesterday, and I was getting text message and email updates along the way. And just so everything became easier for the consumer in auto. And I just couldn't get over, in the heavy machinery side, nothing had changed. And I was always amazed at customers, like what they tolerated for how much money they spent. I buy a car once every 8 years, but the Hutchinson Constructions buy millions of dollars of equipment every year. They rent millions of dollars of equipment in a year, buy millions of dollars of parts. We had customers at our dealership that probably were, $20-30 million customers in a year. And that was what stuck out to me. And so I just kept thinking, man, there's such an opportunity here. If someone came in and really built more technological solutions that make things easier for customers. That was, just the main thought and the thesis. And once I kind of started there, I couldn't stop thinking about it. To where, like, over that 6-month period is where I kind of summoned the courage or the foolishness to just commit to it and then start down that path.
So you've built or been a part of building teams, both in sports and in business. Would you say one is harder than the other?
I think they're both equally hard. I think, in sports, it was never my choice who was on the team.
Right. But you still have to build teamwork and get on the same sheet of music.
Man, hiring, and I know this is like really personal to you and a passion project for yourself. Hiring a business is unbelievably difficult. And anybody who has hired people, interviewed people, understands that. And it's crazy. And when you think you have somebody great, and then 6 months in, you realize you don't. There's so many different layers to that.
It is unbelievably hard to find the right people. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, is just talent shortage across the civil industry. I'm sure you see this with Heave.
Yep.
But also in our world, and it's really difficult to find people in general, but it's even extra difficult to find good folks. Um, so there also seems to be a lack of skill knowledge too. A lot of folks are talking right now about the baby boomers leaving the for retirement, and I think there's a lot of variables at play here. Another one is technology. So you're talking about earlier, how technology can improve things, but it can also be a catalyst to degrade things a bit. So, with autonomous equipment or just running equipment off GPS, I've seen a lot of operators that are new. It helps them learn how to operate equipment, but then they also use it as a heavy crutch, and they don't learn how to grade without it. So they get put into some situations at times, and they don't know what to do. So there seems to be a big conundrum here on, where are we finding these teammates? I mean, what are you seeing in your business?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of different paths to go down there. I think one thing that needs to be kind of stated, before we got on camera, we were talking about Dirt World. I think they are playing a pivotal part because their mission, BuildWit's mission, is to drive more eyeballs and more interest to the industry. I think that's number one, is that there's just a lack of focus and a lack of discussion around the industry. And I think that's resulted in younger people pursuing careers in other places. So I think that is really important. Telling more stories, educating young people around career paths and possibilities is one thing. I do think that lack of shop classes in high school, I think that needs to come back. And I'm saying this, for people who know me, my friends are like, you can't fix anything, and I can't. But it's because I didn't have a shop class or anything when I was younger that might have taught me how to work with my hands. I think that is really, really important. One of the things that's encouraging is I think we're having a more realistic discussion these days around, not everybody should go to college. How many younger people in the last 15, 20 years went to college, and because that's just what people did, and got an art history degree or a philosophy degree, or these degrees that don't really get you anything. I
haven't seen anyone, or I haven't seen, and maybe it's out there, but I haven't seen anyone that's actually measuring progress. Like you talk about BuildWit, and I love what they do, and they're putting, a lot of content out there, which is really cool. And it seems to be this generation, this society today is very, they consume a lot of content. But is there something out there measuring? Is that working?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know who's measuring or how to measure. I was saying, it's encouraging to me to read more in respected publications. I saw articles around in the Wall Street Journal, the last 3-6 months around HVAC technicians, about how there's more people going into the field because there's high demand for it, and hey, you can make a really good living, you can own your own company. It's a viable path. But in terms of statistics on people pursuing trades or becoming interested, I haven't seen the effect or impact of these discussions.
Well, that's my fear, is that one, I don't think let me just preface that, I don't think we can not talk about it. I think it's great that there is more conversation around it. I think it's great that we have folks like BuildWit and really a lot of the people like ourselves in the industry trying to generate more content to kind of get the stories out there. But to be a contrarian on the other side, I'm fearful that it's a societal issue that content isn't going to fix. That
You know, I
they
totally
just don't.
understand. And I think I hear what you're saying is like, yeah, that might be great for the future, but what do we do right now? Is and I agree. There is no easy fix to it. I also would ask you, like, how, and I might be wrong. My assumption, having worked in corporate America for a while, is if I feel like people are less willing to train other people today than maybe they were in the past, and that contributes to our problem. I don't know. It's like there seems to be more of a prevailing attitude of like people get annoyed that certain individuals just aren't fully formed and that they don't want to. It's like, oh, I don't have the time to train this person. And then a lot of times when I hear people complain about that, I'm like, you do have plenty of time. You just don't want to do it. So I don't know what you think about that part of it.
I think there's more and more companies that have the resources are setting up their own internal universities, and they are doing training.
Mhm.
More often, I hear, for negative comments around training. More often, I hear that the trainee is difficult to train, and I think it's just a matter. Again, back to society, it's just different. People are different. 50 years ago, you get an apprentice, and I'm not saying this is right, but I mean, they were hazed and they were, they get
Sure.
told, just get over there and get it done. Like, I don't want to hear any lip. If you do that
Yeah.
today, then people just wilt.
Yes, definitely. But that's the thing in like I see that in sports too, right?
Mhm.
Like where coaching is different. I think personally, my leadership style has evolved over time too because of who the people are that you have to lead. But that's why I think like when I look at people who are really, really successful and who've built like enduring companies and are great leaders, is I think that's one of the qualities you see is that they see that happening and then they can adapt.
True story.
And that I don't, and I think it's just always going to be that way where there's to be really successful and to build an awesome company, you're always going to be in the minority. You're always going to be in the 1% or 2%. Because you're just willing to do and you recognize certain things that need to be done more so than other people. And so I think you have to kind of separate it a little bit that way.
Let me ask you
what I mean?
this. And this is broad general industry as well as your company at Heave.
Mhm.
Do you think there's ever a space to lower the bar to bring in the talent that you need?
I think I'm gonna have to ask how you define that. Like, when you say lower the bar, like the way I view the topic is we have certain non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
And the non-negotiables to me are like attitude and effort and like the things that you can control. Like that, I would never lower the bar on. Passion. I think passion is not talked about as much and is super important. So I don't know if you would consider that in lowering the bar. Like I would be more accepting of like lowering the bar in terms of like specific job experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like how I view it is we want to identify people who have the right raw material. And, if I'm trying to hire like an accountant, like I don't say, all right, you got to have 8 years of accounting experience. Like I'm willing to like take somebody on who is passionate about accounting who doesn't have a lot of experience. So I don't know if you consider that like lowering the bar or not, but I think it's important to kind of like break it apart a little bit.
I do, and I think it's a broad question, and I don't want it to sound negative, like, oh, I'm hiring this person and I'm having to lower the bar to bring them in. That's not really how I view it.
Yeah, and like if you like the phrase lowering the bar, like in general, like the where I hear that in our society could be a couple different places, like our school system. Like I don't believe we should lower the bar on what we expect our students to achieve. And I have three kids, like in school. I don't, I hear lowering the bar in terms of like the Navy SEALs. I don't believe that we should lower the bar on SEAL training. It's super hard and it produces the people who pass are elite. And I don't think we should ever lower the bar on expectations, like in terms of like those areas. But yeah, in terms of like hiring and what we expect from employees, like I don't believe we should lower the bar in terms of what we expect from our employees. But I think we have to be more open to people with not as who have a ton of experience in certain areas that we need. I think if you can find the right people who are moldable, and you have a great culture, and you have people who are good leaders, that I think you can get those newer people, to hit that standard.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a mixed bag. Even with your expectations, sometimes you have to be flexible. Early in my career, I heard some executives talking. They would say DTT, don't tolerate, terminate. Well, in this day and age, if you aren't kind of lowering the bar on your tolerance level, you're not going to have anybody in your company, in my opinion. Right. Instead, I think you have to lean in, and to your point about training, then you have to be more accommodating, more tolerant, but you have to lean in and train.
Yeah, I think you have to understand, like, that's where nuance is so important. I would love, because I've heard, similar type, like these old timers, like don't tolerate, terminate. Like I would love to talk to them about what that really means, because like everybody makes mistakes. But like some of the conversations that I've had with our teammates here at Heave are, not all mistakes are the same. So you can make a mistake, just you work hard, you had the right thought process, and you just made a mistake. Or you can make a mistake by being careless and you weren't paying attention. You didn't learn from the past, and you made a big mistake, but was totally could have been prevented. Like those are the ones that I don't tolerate, and we shouldn't tolerate.
Yeah.
But that's where like nuance comes into play, like, because you can't have an environment where people are walking on eggshells all the time, who are afraid to make a mistake, because we're trying to accomplish something. We're going against the grain. Like we need people who are not afraid to act, who will act like an owner, take initiative. And it would be a death sentence for us if my team was afraid to make a mistake and just sat there paralyzed. So I think nuance is such an important part of that.
So how do you handle, you find yourself in a situation where you've got a person in a key role, they make one of those intolerable mistakes. You don't have anybody on the bench to put in that spot. What's your next move?
Yeah, it's coaching to me, and it's important to get to the heart of how they made the mistake. To me, it's how did you arrive here? Because if the person was careless, it matters to me if they take ownership of it. of the mistake. Like if it clearly impacts them. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm sure you've had this situation with yourself. Like you can through coaching understand like, oh, does this person even care that they made the mistake? Like if the person if they're not bothered by it, like I've had discussions with people internally where it's like, hey, you let down your teammates, you let down these 5 other people who are working their ass off. If that person isn't bothered by that, then that's when like it's clear to me like, all right, we can't tolerate that, we gotta let that person go, even though we don't have someone to fill it right now. My personal philosophy and opinion on this is I would much rather operate shorthanded with people who give a shit than just having, more bodies in seats, but knowing that this person's just not that committed.
Have you have you
And
yeah, have you heard the term addition by subtraction? I'm sure you have, right?
yes, yes, yeah.
So, you brought up the military. So when I was in the service, there was some studies going on about just that, like whether or not to lower the bar for spec war groups because they were running so thin.
Mhm.
Um, but you got to keep the bar high, right? Well, along those lines, in training, we've had some exercises where we'd have 7 people on a certain training element, and someone's sucking wind, right, and is dragging the rest of us
Mhm.
down. And I know it's a physical thing, and it's business isn't always
Mhm.
a physical thing, but the
Sure.
principle I think still applies where instructors would pull off 1 or 2 of those folks dragging the team down, and the team would actually
Right.
perform better.
100%. And I think something that's not recognized enough is, as a leader, if you don't act, then the other members of the team just kind of, you lose credibility with them. You can't fool people. And so if you have like 5 people who are busting their ass and this one person who's not, and you don't do anything about it, then it just infects the other 5 and their performance will decline. And so I would much rather run with the team of 5 that's committed, shorthanded, than carrying that 6th person, because then the other 5, like, they start to lose trust and faith in you as a leader. And I've seen that happen. I think a lot of people just ignore that kind of stuff, and they don't realize the negative impact it has on the morale of everyone.
Would you agree with the philosophy that you'd rather limit your company growth based on the team that you have that is cohesive rather than trying to grow with problem team members?
Yeah, I would. Like I said, I would much rather operate shorthanded with people who gave a shit than not. And I recognize that you're never going to bat 1,000 with hiring. But I think if I'm answering the question correctly, like if once I know that certain people aren't cutting it, we gotta move on.
Yeah.
And I'd rather take my time in filling those positions. Yeah, I'd much rather be really confident in who we have.
And you would forsake growth for that too?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think not all growth is good. Um, and I think that really applies in a startup company. If you chase big numbers, even if you achieve them, it doesn't. You might be setting yourself up for failure. Like I'll give you an example, like of how I think about our company, right? Like I mentioned in the intro that we're in Florida, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. We're an online company. We have technicians all over the country. It could be really easy for me to tell our team we are now fixing equipment in California, and we could probably grow our revenue. But I know it's not the right thing. because I know that we don't have enough high quality, talented technicians in that market to tell customers to trust us
Yeah.
yet. And so, yeah, that statement and that thought process applies specifically to what we're doing right now. And so I would rather just focus on our core markets where we have a ton of talented technicians than chase growth, even though it might look better on paper, but I know isn't the healthiest thing. So I'd much rather get there the right way and more slowly over time than to chase growth for growth's sake.
So I appreciate that. Just to wrap things up, um, where do you think our industry is headed the next 5-10 years on this topic? And what's next for Heave?
Yeah, I think where I think the industry is headed is interesting. I I see more. You mentioned like there's a large segment of people who are retiring and are moving on, and so I think there's a younger generation that's taking a more active role in leading organizations, which I think is good. I think people are more open minded. Like I mentioned in my background, like the dealership operated the same way for 20 years. That's not good. So I think in the next 5-10 years, we're seeing more new ideas creep in. And I think what you're saying, when you have certain problems, it forces the collection to try to think of solutions, which I think is a good thing. And it's, you look throughout history, and you've had to do it as an entrepreneur. You see a problem, you come up with a solution to it, it makes you stronger. So I think there's a more open-mindedness to new technology. I see more entrepreneurs with industry experience building solutions into the industry. I think that it's been really difficult in the past. I don't think people from outside of the industry can build solutions that will resonate. So, but I see now more and more younger people who know the industry building solutions purposely for the industry. So, like you mentioned, like autonomous equipment. I think I see a lot of like estimating tools. So I think people are more open-minded to technology that'll help their operations, which is exciting to me. And in terms of Heave, our company, I kind of touched on it. Like what we're working towards is being the only nationwide field service provider for all brands of equipment. That's what we're working towards. We're not trying to go too fast. We are so relentlessly focused on delighting our customers and not, telling the world that we can help them if we can't. Like we want, like something simple that I say all the time is we want to win every service job. Like every time a customer puts in a service call, we want that to be like, oh my God, that was the best service experience I've ever had. And so we're just doing it geo by geo, but with the intention of going across the country at a certain point in time.
I appreciate that. Just to close this out, if I didn't make it clear, I don't think lowering the bar is the right answer. I don't think it's a successful way to build a business. I don't think it's a successful way to build the industry. I think it could put, people in harm's way if they're not, they don't have their head on a swivel. They're not properly trained. I think it could lead to disaster. I think we have to step up the training, like you mentioned, and find the right people that really want to be a part of it, and not because that looks cool, but that they actually really enjoy what we do, because it is a lot of fun.
It is. I think we have to recruit. Like recruiting is hard. It requires a lot of effort. And where I used to work, we didn't recruit. Like we were literally reliant on someone walking in the door and with a resume.
Right.
And And that's not the way to go about it. And I think as an industry, we have to recruit. We have to go try to identify people that maybe we didn't see as a fit before, but who have like the right raw materials, and show them what's possible. And so it requires a lot of hard work, like everything. Recruiting is not easy.
No, it's not. But yeah, we're all out there doing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want great people, you got to.
That's it.
Yeah, you can't just wait for people to kind of show up at your door.
Right on. Well, I appreciate your time today, Alex. Appreciate you joining us, sharing some about
thank
Heave.
you.
Yeah.
It's always good to catch up with you. I know I've been a fan of what you've been building, and I know what you got working. So rooting you on, and good to connect with you every now and then, and have a great holiday season, man.
Yeah, you too, Alex. I need to catch up with you here in a couple months. I've got some big news for you.
I love to hear it.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right.
Yep. Have a good one.
Yeah, bye.